Mr. Chairman, thank you. Mr. Muilenburg, have you determined that the failures that resulted in the tragic consequences, were they failures in the policies and protocols that Boeing had in place, or was it a failure to comply with those protocols and policies that resulted in these consequences?
Yeah. Senator, in some cases, we relied on these longstanding industry standards, policies, and certified to those, and we're now raising questions around those. That gets back to this pilot response time discussion that we had earlier. In some cases, we missed on implementation, as I mentioned earlier, with the angle of attack sensor. But overall, we did follow the certification process and steps. But nonetheless, we've learned from both of these accidents, and the fixes that we need to make are clear.
So the fixes are both in policy and then making certain that the policies are followed once the new policies are in place?
Senator, I believe that both are true, yes.
Thank you. And I assume there's other certification and just developments at Boeing that are always ongoing. Have you changed your behavior and or policies for the certification and development process for other pieces of equipment, other aircraft that Boeing is now proceeding towards certification?
Senator, we have, and we're going to continue to change. As I said, we have learned, but we're still learning. I mentioned earlier the change to our safety review board structure. That is a big substantive change. The stand-up of our new safety organization, the realignment of our engineering team, those 50,000 engineers. We're also taking a look at some of those long-standing assumptions behind how we design as we look at next-generation products like the 777X as an example. So we are taking a comprehensive approach to those updates.
As this committee looks certainly at certification, as we look at the FAA, what suggestions does Boeing have for this committee when you look at any policies or failures at the FAA? So the way I would view this is we have two major organizations involved in this process. One is the manufacturer, Boeing. The other is the federal agency that is there to certify. My assumption is that neither one did things right. And what have you learned about the FAA that we should know as we look at the FAA now and in the future?
Well, Senator, we have a great deal of respect for the FAA. I personally worked with the FAA for many years, have a great deal of respect for them and their professionals. I know the FAA is also taking a hard look at all of the reports and inputs and investigations and is committed to making changes. I think you've heard that from Administrator Dixon.
Do you have suggestions what changes the FAA should make?
Senator, I don't have specific recommendations for you, but we'd be glad to follow up on that if it'd be useful.
Thank you. Where are we now in the 737 MAX? It seems like every week there's a report that an airline is believes they're going to have that plane flying again, or that certification is nearby.
Yeah.
What is the status?
Senator, we're in the final stages of the process. So we are currently testing the final software updates. When ready and with the FAA's approval, we'll proceed to a certification flight in the near term. Subsequent to that, it'll be the FAA's responsibility to evaluate that and issue an airworthiness directive. That's all work that we're proceeding on over the next few weeks and months. But I think it's important, again, that the airplane will return to service when it's safe. Right? This is not going to be timeline driven. We are committed to answering every question the regulators have, and the airplane will fly when everyone is convinced it's safe. That is the most important thing here.
It troubles me that to get to that point it's certainly not that it's taking so long. I want the result that you just described. We want the right circumstance before we're flying again. But it suggests to me that there were much more significant problems with the MAX 37 if it was previously certified, and yet now it takes so long. It's something more than just a glitch. It's something more than just a minor change. That makes me concerned about the process that allowed it to be certified in the first place. What am I missing?
Senator, I think you raise a very good point. Our initial effort early this year was focused on the MCAS updates that we've already talked about. Around the middle of the year, as we were evaluating all of the other inputs and data, we identified some additional safety enhancements that we could make, not something that was required for certification, but something that we thought while the airplane was grounded was the right thing to do and a safety enhancement. And rather than waiting to do that later after return to service, we as a company and with the FAA decided that we would take the extra time for those additional software updates. And that's the work we've been doing through the summer and into the fall. That's designed to add additional software redundancies throughout the flight control computers. And that is the final software we're testing. What I want to convey here is this is really the culture of Boeing. And I understand the questions that are being raised. But when our teams find opportunity to improve safety, that goes to the top of the list. That's the top priority. And if it takes time, if it takes money to do that, that's where we're focused. And that's why it's taking longer than I think some anticipate.
I'd request your follow-up on your thoughts about the FAA. Thank you.